call the meeting to order. Okay, let's start with introductions and we can start down here.
Lucinda Mahoney, CFO.
I'm Pete Peterson, Secretary. Attorney Hall.
L.B. Gray Johnson.
Dick Training.
Kim Steele.
Amy Domboski,
Bill Evans.
Peter Rusk with Internal Audit.
Mike Chapman, Internal Audit.
Elizabeth Jensen, budget analyst. Marilyn Bonzo.
Thank you. So the next item on the agenda is the fire department, 2014 paramedic recruitment and funding. And you look surprised, Lucinda.
Yeah, my agenda doesn't show that.
Yeah, you have the agenda that I sent out a week ago, but it's been updated, so, can somebody give her? Yeah. No, she can have it. Anyway, at yesterday's Public Safety Committee meeting, Chief Fullenwider gave us a memo, and there was a lot of discussion about the possibility of hiring paramedics now to start the process. And in addition to that, he gave us some insight on what's happening and what's been requested with the 2014 budget and the 2015 budget. We're not going to talk about 2015 right now, but I want to talk about paramedic recruitment and funding.
Okay.
You have the floor, Lucinda. I was hoping that Chief Fullenwider would be here, but it looks like he isn't, so.
Well, I can provide what I know.
Well,
I'm
that's
not
what we
sure
anticipate
about
here.
what's really the topic here. I did read a media release yesterday, last night, that indicated that the chief is concerned about the overtime and the burnout associated with the paramedics. He is fully empowered, if you will, to hire staff. He has a budget that has been approved by you all, and he currently, I think he has a budget of 60 for EMTs, and we ran a quick report. He currently has 3 vacant positions, which would equate to $300,000+ of labor budget that he would have to fund hiring 3 additional, or not additional, but to just fill his 3 vacant positions. Additionally, last week, just in terms of the overall monitoring that I do of some departments, particularly the fire department, the overtime actuals, and this is the actual costs that are incurred, year to date are $600,000 less than the same time period in 2013. So their overtime has gone down with, I would imagine, less overall personnel because they haven't had an academy yet, so it would have been difficult for them to hire. Now, I haven't had a one-on-one conversation with the chief about this, but from
Excuse me. Welcome, Chief Fullenwider. Thank you.
Oh, there it is. I was just providing an overall summary. So, it's really great news. I would really like to commend the chief for his excellent management of that overtime budget on a year-to-date basis. Now, how the chief distributes and manages his staff, that's an operational decision, and that's something that he is responsible for. Additionally, if you recall, for the 2014 first quarter budget, we did provide $125,000 for an academy. And the direction, and this was before you came on board, the direction that I had provided in writing to the fire department was that they were to begin planning for the academy immediately. So to the extent that they've done that, that would be for the chief to respond to.
Okay, thank you. And welcome, Chief Fullenwider. We're on item number 3, obviously the fire department. And what I've said so far before Ms. Mahoney started talking was that we had a Public Safety Committee meeting yesterday, and you had the floor for quite some time, and the subject matter was paramedics and the possibility of starting that process this year. So with that said, I would like for you to express, if you will, what you had to say in yesterday's Public Safety Committee meeting on that subject.
Certainly.
Thank you.
We're in the process of moving Medic 12
on a temporary basis and during peak hours only to Station 4. And the reason for that is that we're burning out our medics, abusing our medics at Stations 1, 3, and 4. So by moving that medic unit on a temporary basis during peak hours, it will alleviate some of the stress that we're experiencing at those particular stations. At the same time, Medic 7 and Medic 9 will be pulled in to 12's area during that period of time because the run volume is a little higher there than it is in their locations. So what it does, it spreads the workload. It's what I feel anyhow is management of our resources, and that's what we're doing. As you know from our discussion yesterday, I discussed this with the mayor. The mayor approved the plan. We talked a little bit about the possibility of the assembly moving some money for us. That would be appreciated. If that in fact happens, we are in the planning stages of not only running our academy on March 1st, but if that happens, we foresee the ability to hire 6 firefighter paramedics from other areas of the state. That will, of course, give us a jump on our staffing issues with paramedics now. So I guess what I'm saying is that instead of hiring those 6 in March, which we might be able to get them and might not, there's things about a lateral hire that I'm really not well versed in, but Nancy Yerser, of course, is well versed in that, and she said it can be done. But if we wait till March 1st to run our academy, we'll have boots on the ground, firefighter boots on the ground by July 1st, but we won't see a paramedic qualified until January 1st of 2016.
2015?
2016.
16.
16.
Oh.
This is 14, 15, we're on the academy, January 1st, 2016.
Okay, thank you. Mr. Trainee and then Mr. Bosky.
Chief, how much money did you say you needed to have transferred to make this happen?
Somewhere south of 400,000. And I promised yesterday that I was going to bring hard numbers, but as you can imagine, it's been busy for the last.
A little south of that. Lucinda, I saw you sent out a directive yesterday on budget reductions, 1%. How is that factoring into what the chief needs? Can he keep the money he's got, or is, because he says he's going to need another slightly of $400,000. How is your directive to reduce his budget by 1% going to affect this?
Well, it's difficult for me to respond to that because I wasn't involved with the discussion here. This is the first I've heard of it, so I need to talk to the mayor.
Okay,
This
because
is
once
really-
we approve
this
a
is-
budget, I expect him to spend the budget.
Yeah, well, it's the mayor's decision in terms of how we are managing our deficit for 2015.
Mr. Trainee, may I add that the current budget does not allow for the activity that we're talking about.
Right, but a reduction, even a directed reduction even more, takes you back even further south.
If it hadn't, quite honestly, been for the generosity of the assembly and kicking up our overtime budget, we probably would have been in the red.
Thank you.
You're welcome, Mr. Trainee. Mr. Bosky?
Thank you, Madam Chair. Chief, I wanted to go back to one of the comments you made. Isn't it true that if we do a lateral hire and we have the opportunity to, say, get a very experienced paramedic, they have the potential to hit the streets far sooner than January 2016?
Absolutely. We anticipate, given an October hire date, that we could have them on the street as early as March and maybe before 2015.
Okay, so much of this hinges on the quality of candidates that we potentially could have. Okay, I would just like I know in this letter that I just received this morning that was presented to the Public Safety Committee yesterday, it references a proposal by me to potentially alleviate this issue, and I just want to set it up this way. We have area-wide EMS. We have ambulances all over town that are supposed to respond to our citizens when they have medical emergencies. So what we're doing now, in my opinion, because of short staffing, what we're doing now is we're shifting public safety resources from one area of the community to other areas of the community. Now, when you recognize that there's taxpayers all over the community that are paying the same EMS rate, is that really equitable division of emergency assets? I submit it's not. But with that said, we all recognize that public safety is the number one thing that we have to do right. Because when you have a heart attack, we want to make sure somebody shows up quickly and can transport you quickly. It's important to me to make sure that we focus on this, and if we can't get an academy, the symptom is moving the rigs, right? But the systemic problem, in my view, is short staffing, and the chief alluded to it, he actually said it, but one thing I have heard consistently from paramedics is the fact that they're being mandatory overtime. They are burning out. I actually know paramedics that have given up their paramedic certificate. That's 21% of their pay, just so they don't have to do it anymore. And when we're already short staffed, that's a major problem. I mean, that's a problem not only for the fire department in managing their overtime budget, because what we see is when we have a department that has exploding overtime costs, it's, in my opinion, largely due to staffing. Of course, you can have natural disasters that equate to it. So, as I look at this, I'm looking at a holistic long-term view of, I would like a reassessment of the overall staffing in public safety. I think we're going to run into the same problem or similar problem in the police department, to be quite frank. Exactly. So to me, as the Budget and Finance Committee, I would really like for us to really take a hard look at overtime budgets, staffing, burnout rates, attrition rates, those types of things, because those are symptomatic of a bigger problem, in my opinion. I will be bringing forward, as it was alluded to, I have a proposal. I think there's an opportunity for us to shift money from the Assembly's budget to directly hire paramedics, because we know that's where we're short. And that's why these medic rigs are being shuffled, is because we don't have enough paramedics. We have an extra medic rig, Medic 2 downtown, that when their staffing's available, they can staff it. But how often would you say, Chief, that medic rig is in service?
Medic 2 hasn't been in service since I've been back, and they tried to run it as a VLS unit, but that ran afoul of the union, as I understand, so that didn't work either. It's a matter of managing your resources, as you know, and it's a matter of having the right people in the right place. If the Assembly so chooses to help us in this particular area, I think that we have sufficient manpower to put Medic 2 into play. We have the personnel. I don't think we need extra personnel. It's a matter of having the resources in the right place. And I really believe with the program that we are rolling out as we speak, that we can do that. We need to hire more paramedics in our academy, and we'll do that this time, although we have to be very careful when we do that, because we could violate some of the labor practices. Certainly, we have an in-house paramedic program that we're going to actually, we've been doing it for a number of years, but it's never really been codified. So a guy that goes into it, or a gal that goes into it, doesn't really know what the end result is. But if we take our own firefighters that want to be paramedics, and if we send them to school, and they come back, they're already in the system, they already have all the criteria, all they have to do is get through their training per our standards. We've had 2 people recently that came back from school. One is a young lady that went to a school in Denver. She was there for 6 months. She came back, went through our training, and was on the street 3 months afterwards. So that's compared to a year, year and a half, sometimes 2 years of trying to bring people from outside the department and running them through that kind of a system. So I think we have the plan in place, and I believe that we can handle the attrition in that manner. But we need I don't know how to put it. We need a little bit of a boost.
You need a shot in the arm to
Yes,
get
we
it
do.
started.
Okay, thank you, Chief Gillenwater and Mr. Bosky. I have a quick question before Mr. Steele. Ms. Mahoney mentioned 3 vacant positions. What type of, are these paramedics? These 3 vacant positions? Are they paramedic positions?
The ones that we would hire?
Well, before you came into the meeting, Ms. Mahoney mentioned that there are 3 vacant positions in the fire department. Maybe I should ask you, what type of positions are there?
They're EMTs.
EMTs? Okay.
So I
Okay.
don't know if an EMT is a paramedic.
No, they're not. Thank you, Ms. Mahoney. And I have another question to the chief. Okay, so you talked about needing $400,000, but you already have $125,000 for an academy. Are you talking about an additional $285,000 or $400,000 on top of what you already have?
$400,000 on top. That
Okay.
$125,000 that will be taken up in testing for the new hire academy is going to be done March 1st. And I don't know how many vacancies that you think we have, but right now we're at 10.
We just run out of the system and we just ran only on EMTs. So
Oh, okay. Well,
that was the only focus of our analysis.
Okay,
You're
thank
down
you,
10,
chief.
You're down 10?
we're down 10 positions, but she's right. They're a combination of positions. Right now, it takes 54 medics to staff our rigs currently. We're down to 50, and we'll lose some more before it's all over with.
Okay, thank you, Chief. Mr. Steele?
I'm just, I wasn't at the safety meeting, and I do not have that memo, but we knew this was coming. We saw it coming last year in the budget, and we need to find the money, set some priorities and do some adjustment, because public safety is, as Mr. Basky said, our #1 priority here. And I agree, we just heard on the news last night in terms of the police department also eliminating the gang task force individual that was in charge of that. I think we need to look at our public safety here and solve the problem that we saw coming a year ago, at least, and get it done. It's our job.
I agree. Thank you, Mr. Steele. Mr. Bosky?
Thank you, Madam Chair. I just want to follow up on my initial comments and just say, I don't want to hide the fact that I believe part of the solution is ensuring we have adequate staffing. And it means it's the right mixture of paramedics, firefighters, EMTs. That's the right mixture. But what is our staffing levels? How is that impacting our overtime budgets? But I also believe part of that long-term solution is ensuring Medic 2 is staffed all the time. Because when, and it's something that nobody's really discussing right now, but a big part of the problem is downtown Anchorage. In downtown Anchorage, we have a very high population that's being run on for public intoxication. We're getting a lot of calls to the Brother Francis shelter. We're getting a lot of calls to Beans Cafe, and that's tying up a lot of our medic units. So what we're finding is we're taking assets from other parts of towns that would service those communities, and we're shifting them in order to compensate that. So we can't be fooled in not thinking this is a symptom of another problem, and it's going back to the public inebriation and some of the homeless issues that we're dealing with. And so we have to be mindful that just throwing money at a resource is not the solution. We have to dig deeper. But part of that, in my mind, is staffing. We have to deal with the symptom first. We have to make sure we have adequate staffing. We have to make sure that medics can respond when there's an emergency. So I think Medic 2 should be staffed full-time, all the time. But when we're talking about staffing, they may be down 10 positions, but when we look at AFD's budget last year and see how much we spent in overtime, are we really staffing them where they need to be? Is it really 10 or is it really 20 that they need? So I think that's the thing I would like to see the Budget and Finance Committee really take a good hard look at, because one of us is not going to be able to do it by ourselves. We're going to have to really come together and work through this issue collaboratively with the fire chief and senior staff and the administration, because it's going to be a big issue, and it's only going to get worse, I think. So I just wanted to make that. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Ms. Dombowski. Chief Fillmore, do you have any other comments you want to make?
Well, I was just thinking about the inebriate problem. One of my battalion chiefs has come up with, I think, a pretty unique idea, and it parallels what the courts are doing now with repeat DUI, DWI offenders. And what they're doing now is actually if you're, I think it's once, maybe twice, if you're DUI, you can't purchase liquor because you have 2 stripes on your license or your state ID. Well, we'd like to follow right along with that from a municipal standpoint and use maybe some kind of a punch, whatever ID. If we haul them to the inebriate center more than twice, they get their ID punch, whatever it is, whether it's a driver's license or whether it's a state ID or whatever they use, and so they can't buy alcohol. Now, given it's not the total answer, and initially people will have other people buy their alcohol for them, but eventually those people that buy alcohol for them will be in the same state and unable to purchase alcohol. So it will, it's not a cure, obviously, but I think it will slow the problem down a little bit. It's the first idea or suggestion that I've ever heard of that kind of makes sense. We've tried everything else, sleep-off centers, the whole works, and it just doesn't work. Thank you.
You're welcome, Mr. Bowman. Any other comments before we move on? Okay, thank you. The next item on the agenda is the 2015 budget, and this committee would like an update on the administration's budget process for 2015. Mr. Mahoney.
What was the topic?
2015 budget.
Okay, 2015 budget. Okay, we have gone through and we've established very preliminary numbers to evaluate where we sit with 2015. And at this point in time, we do expect quite a large deficit. And of course, we're still evaluating that number because we're really early on in the process. But the primary reason for the large deficit is that at the first quarter budget, we used one-time revenues for ongoing costs. And we all know, because I say that over and over again, that whenever you use one-time revenues for ongoing costs, you create a really large problem the next year. So what happened at the first quarter budget was we allocated $2.5 million of fund balance, which was one-time revenues, for an ongoing cost. So that cost ongoing into 2015 does not have a revenue to support it historically. Additionally, there was $4.8 million in property tax relief that was distributed to citizens. And so instead, what we did, in terms of using property tax revenues to fund ongoing operations, that was a one-time issue. And so those revenues are no longer available in 2015 to fund those programs. So that's a total of $7.3 million of one-time funds that were used for ongoing operations. So that's the primary reason that we have, quite a challenge next year. We're asking our department directors to identify, again, efficiencies, and we're continuing to try to not impact services. Our goal is not to impact services. The directive that we provided to the departments was do the best that you can to start working on efficiencies right now, because beginning January 1st, it's really hard to immediately deliver savings. So we asked departments to start looking at it now. So that's where we stand. We're still really closely evaluating the numbers. There is a potential that the number that we originally started with might go down, and so I'm really hopeful that actually comes to fruition. And as I said, at this point, the number's preliminary, but it is still significant.
Any questions? Okay, I have a question. So did I hear you say that right now the deficit is 7.3 million?
I didn't say that, but the email that I sent out indicated it's 7 million, and it's a very preliminary number.
Okay, what you said was 2.5 million, and then
Oh, I see.
4.8, and I think that adds up to 7.3.
7.3 represents the one-time funds that we
Right.
use as a revenue source.
Right.
However, to calculate the deficit,
Mhm.
the deficit is equal to revenues minus expenditures. So in the expenditure category, you have a lot of increases, you have other decreases. So 7 million represents the net of the revenues and the expenditures. The 7.3 is just a revenue number. And it's only one.
From the one-time cost.
Right.
Okay. So do you have a number right now, an estimate that you can tell us the deficit may be?
As of last week, when I sent the email out, the estimate was 7 million.
Okay.
However, as I said, that was very preliminary.
Right.
And we may have identified an opportunity for that number to be reduced. We are closely looking at that, and I'm really hoping that the number goes down. But it's too preliminary for me to talk about it yet.
Right, and I'm hopeful too, and I appreciate the work that you and your staff are doing. And the good news is, this item is going to be on the agenda probably every meeting until Cindy gets the budget. So, yeah, you'll be able to give us an update at next month's meeting, so thank you. Any questions? Okay, well, let's move on to, we had a discussion at the last meeting about the monthly financial reports that are given to the Assembly and how we thought it would be a good idea to have them first presented to the Budget and Finance Committee. But because of time frames, I believe that you thought it may not be a really good idea. Do you have any follow-up on that discussion?
Well, we will do the best that we can, depending on the timing of this meeting, to provide you with the most updated financial information. And so I did prepare an update for you for both investment revenues, as well as expenditures. And so I'm prepared to give that to you if you are interested. I had 2 handouts over there which provide more updated reports than what you had at the last Assembly meeting.
Can somebody distribute that? I appreciate that, Ms. Mahoney, I really do. I was looking at some documents back in 2009. I was looking at an agenda, and at every single meeting we had the OMB director and CFO do a report on the city's finances. So what we'll do,
that.
yeah, we'll have a monthly report on the city's financial status and also fund balance. That's going to be on every single agenda, just so you know ahead of time, okay? And I really appreciate that. And if you want to give us a report, we would appreciate that. Thank you.
So the first report is the expenditure report, and that report was distributed to you at the last Assembly meeting. And we do not have an update on that as of today, and the reason is we are still in the process of closing the June books. But I'll provide you with a bit of an overview. On an overall basis, through May, we are 1% below our budget, but I want to caution you, that does not mean that that's where we'll be at year end, because we are still very early in the year. The labor is tracking lower than planned. The actuals are at 37.5% versus 38% in terms of a percent through the year. And I think that that number, the actual number, is probably a bit high. And the reason for that is because several accounting transactions have not been booked yet in the payroll system. Actually, I think they're booked probably as of yesterday. But we had some accruals that need to be reversed. We have to understand the full impact on an annual basis of the leave cash out, and then also some of our SAP charges that originally are charged to expense will be moved to capital. And the same with overtime. Some of the overtime that you see in this budget will be moved to capital. And so I think that the 37.5% actual number, when it's adjusted, will likely be reflected downward. Additionally, for non-labor, the budget was we're 41.4% through the year. And you don't have a handout for
Yeah,
this.
we were wondering, so you're talking
Right,
from,
no,
okay,
because you already,
thank you.
you already received this report.
Okay.
I'm trying to save trees and not give you data. that
Okay,
you already
great. Yeah,
have.
'cause we're looking at this and going, what's she talking about? It's
Oh,
not
yeah.
here.
No,
So thank
this is-
you.
Yeah, this is based on what
Okay.
you already have. And so the actuals in regard to non-labor are tracking higher, but it is strictly a timing issue, and it's largely because a lot of encumbrances have been made that reflect full-year expenditures. And so at this point, no one has indicated to me that they will be overrunning their budget. So I don't have any information that indicates that we will not meet budget. So that's the expenditure report. The next one is the revenue forecast report, and that you should have a one-page executive summary on that. And I am just, is Dan here? No, Dan Moore and his team, they developed the budget forecast. And if you look to the very bottom right in the shaded box, you can see that the updated forecast as of July 8th indicates we'll be within $100,000 of a $641 million budget. So I just had to calculate the math on that, and that is 99.98% for accurate. I think that that is absolutely remarkable, and Dan and his team just do a fabulous job. But, you know, as always, because there are so many different types of revenues, you're going to have variations between your categories. So I'll just provide you very quickly with some of the highlights. In regard to the tobacco tax, you know, we estimate a small reduction there, and that's due to a refund that we made to one of our wholesalers. In regard to the construction revenues on an overall basis, we do expect those to come up a bit by $400,000. And largely this is due to, last year we had a really robust construction revenue bucket, if you will, because we had a lot of really large projects that occurred. We didn't expect those to continue this year, but what's happening is that we have much more smaller projects, and it's turned out to be really great.
Mr. Mooney, can I interrupt you for a moment?
Sure.
Mr. Trainor has a question.
Lucinda, I see the auto registration tax on here, 11.5. Have you looked at the state's proposal for us to reduce ours yet? Can you tell me how much, if we adopt the state's policy reference, the tax, it would affect our budget?
$6 million.
6 million?
Mhm.
Thank you.
Let's see, what else is significant? Investment earnings is forecasted at this point to be down about $300,000, and I have a separate report on that, which I'll go through in a minute. Let's see what else would be significant. The only other significant thing in the selected departments is the continued decline in the police department revenues for citations. They're down $700,000 again from budget. So, you know, I have repeated conversations with Chief Neal about it, and he believes that it will improve next year. So I'm really hopeful that will happen.
Okay,
with the new
hold on a moment.
recruits.
Mr. Bosky, you got a question?
I did, and, you know, I don't know if Lucinda's the right one to answer this, but I'll try. Looking at police, basically their revenue coming down $700,000, I think logic would tell me that a big part of that is because the traffic unit has essentially been absorbed into the patrol unit, so they're not focusing on those enforcement efforts. Would that be accurate?
Yeah, that's a portion. He moved some folks out, put them in control, but additionally, we have received less grants from the state of Alaska that gives us an ability to fund citation writing with overtime dollars. And the chief also believes that he may be able to get that grant back, which would enable us to pay the overtime so that the officers can be writing citations.
Thanks.
Yeah, that's pretty much it. As you'll notice on the very bottom, below the 0.1%, we did receive additional property tax revenue related to the TAPS assessed valuation. and that is 1.6 million. But due to the litigation that will be associated with that, we will set that aside and restrict it, the same as we've done for previous years, until the Supreme Court resolves the case. So any questions on revenues?
I have one more. Thank you, Madam Chair. With respect to the fire department, how are we coming with their collections for their transport fees and all that stuff?
We increased the ambulance fee this year pretty significantly. And as you can see here, the numbers are up by 200,000 in regard to our forecast. However, I think there's more upside than that in that number. They are doing a very good job with collections. We started off to a rocky start last year, but the fire department has really worked through that with a third-party collection agency, and we're seeing really good results.
So that was kind of where I was going with my question. Are we seeing this little bump? Is it because of the collection efforts, or is it because of the increased fee? I mean, I'm sure it's probably a combination of both. I'm just trying to gauge this vendor versus the last vendor, and are we up to speed where we need to be with collections for that service?
Maybe the chief can answer that. I mean, I could guess.
And I'm fine if you don't have an answer, if we could just have some sort of quick little update next time, because I know that was a concern of
Actually,
mine.
I have the data.
Okay.
Let me find it. Why don't I send it to you? You'll
That's fine.
take
That's
that.
fine. That's fine.
Because we've got it,
I'm just curious.
we have
because-
graphs on it.
Okay. Thank you.
Would you send it to all of us?
Yeah, you will actually get it in your revenue report
Okay.
on the assembly agenda on
For Tuesday, okay.
Okay.
Yeah, so
Great.
this is just a preview of what you'll see on Tuesday.
Excellent.
Then, any more questions on revenues? Okay, so moving on, your next handout is our investment portfolio. And what I provided here is the summary page of the overall returns for the entire portfolio. And you will also have this in your packet on Tuesday. This is one page of probably 15 in terms of what's in your book or in your thing. But I want to point out, first of all, especially for those of you who are new, that these returns reflect only investments in fixed income. This is not reflective of any type of equity investments. This is essentially our working capital. If you look at the total portfolio return, which is about a third of the way down, and you look over to the calendar year to date, you will see that through May, we have generated 0.89% return. And that's for 5 months. And so if by chance we would earn that same amount through the rest of the year, that would calculate out to 2.13%, which in a fixed income environment is phenomenal. That's really a good return. The market in terms of fixed income is still really volatile. I mean, in the month of January and February, we had, positive returns. However, in the month of March, we had a negative return. April and May were both positive, but, what's happening in the global markets really does impact our performance. It's difficult to predict this. What you saw in the revenue forecast reflected a reduction of about 300,000, and that's mostly due to realized losses. But over the life of the maturity of these investments, it all works out. It's just doing the mark-to-market accounting, and that's what we're showing. Towards the halfway through the page, you can see the total portfolio return again, the 8.9. And what we do, and this is for those of you who are somewhat new, what we do here is we compare this to what we would be earning if we had this money just sitting in a 90-day treasury bill, which was the way it was previously invested prior to 2007. And so we've actually been able to deliver a significantly higher return, which is really good for taxpayers because this is a revenue then that reduces the amount of taxes. We currently have $648 million in this account. It will go up probably by another 200 or so million in August, and when we get the second half of our property taxes. And there are times when this account is at $1 billion. So it's really a lot of money that we're managing to try to get as high of a return as we can, but still preserve the principal. So any questions on investments?
And for those who may not know, we have outside investors who work on behalf of the municipality.
We have 3 fund managers that do some of our investing. They do the majority of our investing. But I also have 1 staff person who does do some bond investing, some of our, more trust-oriented security investing. So they perform that function for us, and then that way we save some of the fees because of hiring a manager.
And that's Ross Bisfold.
Ross is the manager.
Right.
And Chris Richardson is the person that is doing that investing.
Okay, thank you. Any questions before we move on? Okay, thank you for the report, Lucinda. It was very thorough.
Well, we have one more.
Okay.
You
We
don't
have 2
have
pieces
it.
of paper.
The last report is the utility report.
Oh, great.
And you do not have it because the last report that you received was your first quarter report. This is a report that we provide to you on a quarterly basis. They're all doing well. It's really difficult to see if there's any problems with just 3 months of actuals. So I wasn't going to go through any of the results and the performance on that today because it will all change here shortly. We expect that we'll have that report out either on the addendum or the next assembly meeting.
Okay, you done?
I'm done.
Thank you. Any questions before we move on? Okay, great. All right, the next item on the agenda is the electronic plan review system. We talked about having an update at today's meeting, so you're on the floor again.
Actually, I asked Lance
Oh, great,
to provide the
great.
update, so he can do that.
Please join us, Lance.
Through the chair, my name is Lance Aaron. I'm the Chief Information Officer for the city. And what I did was just, I had to go back through my email and kind of get the whole history of this, to understand it, so I figured I just took notes and would share that with you. In case we run out, here's some more. So basically, this project, starting community development, it's been going on for a few years. It started with it just initial, trying to understand what products were out there and what their needs were. There have been a number of activities that involve both community development and the IT department. At different times, we've also brought in other departments to look at this because there are, when you look at the water utility, electric utility, and public works, they all have needs for similar kinds of functionality. So we just wanted to understand what those needs were so we didn't get locked into a solution that wasn't going to work for them down the road. So the most recent activity that you probably care about is that in last September, a presentation was made to the steering committee, and that included the full ROI for the project. I've got some notes here about that. And then a draft RFP was drawn up. That was given to me in October. I didn't return that to community development until late March. So I had that for 6 months while I was actually doing the detailed review with all my other stuff going on. That was a good 6 months out of the whole, 2.5 years that this has been going on. So we provided a lot of detailed comments to them about the RFP. Some of those were incorporated. There's been a number of discussions going on. A draft RFP is basically ready to go. Some of the most recent discussions with community development have been about areas that would improve the RFP to make it easier for potential respondents to provide a proposal where the costs would likely be accurate. I guess my recommendation at this point is just the work it would take to complete all of that would just delay this that much longer. And probably my recommendation would be that this RFP should go forward now with what's already been prepared, knowing that it's not perfect, but it's good enough to really drive the project forward. And so This particular electronic plan review system that's being talked about, it will interact with a number of other key systems that are used in the community. The CityView system, which is also in community development, and Hanson. And those have all been getting upgraded over the last 2 years. There's been a lot of work on all three. They're all kind of hand in hand. Public Works, and I think through George, has made a commitment to basically perform a remediation of the Hanson system, which has also been started and going on at the same time. So I just wanted to make sure everybody understood there's a lot of complexity because these three systems in the end are going to talk to each other. And there's been a lot of change going on throughout. But I think just in general, the timing is good to get this process started because it's going to be a year-long project once it gets going. And if you have any questions about any details of that, I would be glad to address them.
Mr. Training?
So implementation, we're looking at what, September 2015?
If we were to go out to RFP today, if it were to be turned around, and we evaluated all the proposals and we selected a project within 3 to 4 months, it would likely be a year to complete the project from that point on.
Sometime in
That's assuming everything else goes right.
Mr. Steele?
Yeah, electronic plan review's been around a while, and there are a number of systems, I suspect, that are out there that do it. It's a long time.
Say it again?
This is a long time, a long process here. What is the Hanson system?
The Hanson system was originally procured prior to my involvement. It's got a lot of functionality that's used by the Community Development Department in terms of what we call workflow, so how they deal with code enforcement, permitting. But to be honest, I wish somebody was here from Community Development because that's really, in their side.
Is that a parochial system, or is that, is that our,
It's a
developed
third-party
around our system?
So the company that
Standalone.
offered them was called Hanson. They were bought out by another company called Infor, so you may hear of both. It's actually interesting, I was at the Department of Public Safety at the state at the time that the Muni implemented Hanson. And so the state Department of Public Safety implemented Hanson also based on what we were hearing. So it's not like we're the only ones in town who are using this. But it's gone through some major changes. And when you think about the tool, it would have a couple of major components, like the public portal that faces out to the community where they would submit documents. So the electronic plan review would have that ability. CityView has that ability. Hanson has all that ability. So we don't want to get stuck in the boat of maintaining 3 public portals, essentially. So we're trying to make sure that, we come up with a solution that's good.
Does the plan review system anticipate having to interface with the GIS system?
Yes.
Somebody must have taken that. Certain layers.
Yes.
Pull in the layers and analyze.
Most of these systems do interface with our GIS data.
Yeah, it's a long process, and I hope that we get something that works. It's not too just specific for us. There's stuff out there
Right.
fairly much on the shelf that has to be adapted, certain repairs.
I think
We're talking 2015 for an off-the-shelf system.
through the chair, that discussion has come up quite a bit about the desire in implementing a new system to really try to go vanilla, off the shelf, minimum customization. And in fact, as we had this discussion with Public Works about the existing Hanson system and the remediation of that, what we're talking about doing is really getting rid of a lot of customization that they decide that they don't want and going back to a vanilla system. So all of this stuff is all of these.
Yeah, we're going to miss this whole construction season, and that's going to tick off everybody even more. And everybody's screening for changes to our structure, and where I think that implementation of this is going to be fantastic in terms of turnaround, plan review, updates by the customer, all that kind of stuff. And it just, if we're gonna roll it out in October, that's the middle of the year. Okay, that give you some shakedown for the next season.
Right.
But we get, I applaud your decision not to have it perfect, not to have the RFP picture perfect, but I would hope we're not trying to put too many original bells and whistles in there such that we're going to be driving up the cost also. Frustration.
Thank you.
Any other comments? Well, I just want to say thank you for the update, because as you know, I think everybody else says, this was a budget amendment from the Assembly without a dollar amount, because we were told that the administration could find the money to pay for it. So when do you think the RFP is going to go out?
Well, that'll be a final decision of procurement, but
Just an estimate, that's all I know.
I'll be honest with you, I don't know. I know that with some of these RFPs that have been fairly complex, there's been some back and forth required to get it to a point going out. I know in some cases with, what I'll say, less than perfectly complete RFPs, there were decisions made to go out knowing that they might be completed later in the process. So it's up to procurement, I guess.
Okay, and the reason why I'm asking is because you said that, you're going to move it forward even though it's not perfect.
Well, I'm saying that's my recommendation.
Okay.
I understand that
Okay,
there's a
your
desire to
recommendation.
get this
Gotcha.
done at some point.
All right, well, thank you for your report. Okay, the next item on the agenda is our committee work plan, and we only have about 5 minutes left, so it may be really difficult to go through it in the amount of time that we have left. And I made some changes to it and updated it based on our conversation at the last meeting. So if the committee thinks that that it would be a good idea if you took this with you and reviewed it on your own, and then at our next meeting next month, we could have some comment and you can change it if necessary, and then approve the work plan and get busy.
I would appreciate that.
Okay, all right, then that's what we'll do. But I'll tell you, since we have a whole month between now and the next meeting, I think if you have, do you have any comments or changes? I'd like to have them before the next meeting so that I can bring a revised draft for discussion. Okay? Okay, any other comments before we end this meeting? All right, meeting adjourned.
Thank you.
You're welcome.